So I thought it would be fun to revisit Shadow the Hedgehog in 2025. This year is the game's 20-year anniversary, and with Shadow the Hedgehog getting a lot of attention with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that he was featured prominently in, and the new Shadow Generations title that was released late last year also, Shadow hasn't been more relevant than ever. Like, it feels like he's got some renewed popularity and has experienced somewhat of a resurgence in pop culture, which is always amazing to see. Shadow the Hedgehog has always been one of my favorite characters in all of video games. And this game, I loved it as a kid. I will say I thought it was amazing. I thought like Shadow the Hedgehog running around with a gun and saying damn and being edgy. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Even though the gameplay itself was not very good, I was able to look past that and I was just like, you know what, this game kicks ass. I love it so much. The best way to describe Shadow the Hedgehog is so repetitive that it's obnoxious. The core gameplay and level design itself is for the most part decent. I'm not even going to say it's great, but it's alright. But goddamn, you have to play through the game 10 different times. You have to do 10 separate playthroughs in order to unlock the true ending and to actually complete the game. The crazy thing is, if you actually want to go 100% to get 100% completion, you have to do, I think it's 326 separate playthroughs. So that's a lot of dedication. If someone's really hardcore into 100% in games, Shadow the Hedgehog is by far, I wouldn't say the hardest because the gameplay itself is not incredibly challenging. It could be very frustrating. Doesn't mean it's challenging, if that makes any sense. I think the real challenge is just putting yourself through that. But even just doing the 10 playthroughs to get the true ending of the game is a slog, and I'm currently going through it right now. And it's like, man, once you get to the point where you're just replaying a bunch of the levels that you already played over and over and over again, especially Westopolis, which is the introductory level in the game, you have to play it 10 different times. Oh, yeah, the repetitiveness kicks in pretty early on. Like, at first it's like, okay, because you have different paths that you can take. You can go good, evil, or neutral in the objectives that you take in each level, which would unlock a different stage. So for the first, like, 3 playthroughs, maybe 4, you get some original stuff, and it feels kind of fresh. But, yeah, once you get through, like, the halfway point, it is brutal and very annoying, which, as a 10-year-old kid, it's like, okay, I have the time. I have the time to kill to do this shit, because I'm, like, a 4th grader and don't really have much responsibilities and shit to do, but time is precious this day and age. I mean, you know, when you're older, a lot older now. So, it's it's a lot harder to justify, but I think the overall gameplay is good. It's pretty much a sequel to Sonic Heroes, if you enjoyed the core gameplay of that. Obviously, there's no hero gameplay, but just the overall feel of the game, aside from, obviously, there being gunplay and you being able to shoot your weapon, that's obviously different, and Shadow moves pretty differently even than he did in Sonic Heroes, so the movement feels a little bit different. The graphics, I think, you know, because of the presentation and visual style they went with, is aged pretty well for a 20-year-old game, I would say. I made the mistake, though, of playing the PlayStation 2 version, which I didn't realize until midway through playing, that the game is locked at 30 frames on the PS2, but it is completely unlocked at 60 FPS if you're playing the Xbox or GameCube version. Which I'm like, damn, I should have played the GameCube version. I don't know why. Well, because I grew up on PS2, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to play the PS2 version because that's what I know and that's what I played before. Big mistake. And you notice a huge difference being at 30 FPS. It feels just not as smooth and fast as it could be. So it's definitely a much better experience if you have access to the GameCube or Xbox version, which obviously with emulation, it's pretty easy to obtain that these days. So I just want to put that out there. Like, there is a difference, and it does matter which version you're playing. The PS2 is sadly the worst one. I wish there was a PC version, because I actually played the PC version of Sonic Heroes, and that was actually, like, really good and satisfying to be able to play it on there, like the native PC version. But since there wasn't one on Shadow, I was kind of, yeah, that sucked. So the story is all over the place because of the fact that it's not necessarily canon. The only canon that you get is, like, the actual end of the game, because all the multiple endings and 10 different outcomes that you have during, you know, the different playthroughs, none of them are canon. Like, Shadow doing evil things and being a villain and siding with Eggman or killing Eggman or all the different endings that you can obtain. It's like, yeah, no, none of it actually matters. So you're really just grinding for a good, I don't know, let's say 30, 40 hours. Maybe a little bit less than that, but it's still like a long time that you're playing. Maybe like 20 hours, like realistically, but still, in order to actually get to the real ending, when your typical Sonic game is like 4 to 5 hours and you're done and that's it, and you're good to go, this is just, yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. If it wasn't so super repetitive, and Sonic Heroes, that was like the biggest complaint that game received, was the repetition. They decided to, instead of addressing it in the next game, they decided to turn that up to 11 and make it even more obnoxious than they were before with just recycled content and having to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again to artificially pad out the playtime and the runtime of the game. But there are some good moments in the story and in the gameplay that I would say it's worth playing overall. But it's one of those games that you actually might not finish, or it may take you a very long time to finish, especially if you played other games in the series, where, like I said, it's maybe a couple of hours and you're good to go. I mean, the only game I think that even comes close to taking as long is Sonic Frontiers, but that's a big open-world game where it doesn't overstay its welcome quite as much as this game does, because you're ultimately just doing the same thing, like, just in a loop. And it's like, okay. So I'm currently doing that on my Let's Play channel. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description if you're interested in checking it out. I've had some fun moments. I've had some frustrating moments, but overall, I would say worthwhile so far. Kind of taking a little bit of a break from it for now because I'm just tired of it. But I think in maybe another month or two, I'll get back into it and I'll be able to finally finish it because I actually never beat this game before. And I also have a lot of memories, weirdly enough, with the multiplayer mode. The split screen was actually, like, a lot of fun. I remember having a really good time playing it with friends back in the day. Yeah, if you're interested in that, by the way, the Xbox version does not have it for some reason, but PS2 and GameCube does. I doubt you're going to find someone to play split screen with in 2025 for Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, who knows? Maybe you will, but that's going to be a very small percentage of players. So, yeah, this is the other standalone Shadow game, aside from Shadow Generations, which I've heard mostly good things about. It is very short, unlike this game, and it kind of just feels like a slight expansion of Sonic Generations rather than a huge standalone title. So if you're like a huge Shadow the Hedgehog person and you can't get enough of him, this is obviously the game to play. Otherwise, it is very skippable in the grand scheme of things and the overall Sonic lore and universe. I mean, he obviously, the character Black Doom, the main villain of Shadow Generations, did originate in this game, and he was the main villain of Shadow the Hedgehog too, so in that way it kind of is worth it, because it does mention some stuff, but weirdly enough, like, what I think is hilarious is that Shadow Generations is the same concept with Sonic Generations, is that it revisits old levels from Shadow's past, yet not a single level from Shadow Generations takes place from this game. Not a single one. You get some stuff from Sonic Adventure 2, you get Sonic Heroes levels, even Sonic 06, but nothing from his actual game that was made specifically for him. I still think that's hilarious, and it just shows that this game, yeah, really was kind of a forgettable experience. I mean, there were some really good levels. I think the circuit, I forget the name of it was, the circuit level, and a couple other ones were, like, actually really good stages, but a lot of it was just kind of average. The boss fights were painfully average, so, just know you're coming into, like, maybe a 6 out of 10 experience, not like, oh my god, this is amazing, like Sonic Adventure quality stuff. It is absolutely not. So, yeah, overall though, especially if you're a huge Sonic fan, I'd recommend it. Otherwise, probably not, but it's still pretty cool 20 years later. I have some fun with it still.